Hello again. I'm Angela Taylor, your host for Unlocking the Club. And today I want to unlock a conversation about whose voices are heard and whose stories are told. Recently I was on Twitter and I came across a story. It was actually a really troubling story about Black women who had been abducted in the Kansas City area. And it drew my attention for a number of different reasons. But what was interesting about this story in particular was that after weeks of members of the Black community calling for law enforcement to investigate the situation, including some of the religious leaders in that community that were well respected, where they mentioned the dates, the location of where the kidnappings were happening. There had been some eyewitness accounts of what the man looked like, and all of that was to no avail. And instead of heeding the warnings and actually looking into the situation, the police actually made a public statement saying that they were calling the reports unfounded. Like they literally said, these reports are unfounded. And that was until a few days ago when one of the women who had been kidnapped actually escaped captivity. And as she went door to door trying to find somebody to let her in who would actually call the police on her behalf, she was able to tell the people that discovered her and that let her in. She was able to say that there have been others. Like she had her friends that she was worried about, and she wasn't sure how they were or if they were still alive. And as you can imagine, as I was when I read this article, the community was outraged for obvious reason. But this isn't the first time that folks in the Black community have been ignored, when our calls for action have been ignored. Some of you may be watching or have watched the controversial Jeffrey Dahmer story that is out on Netflix. The show has risen in popularity, and I myself can't actually imagine watching it. I've heard that there's none of the violence being shown, but it's been heavily criticized for legitimate reasons. And critics have questioned the need to actually revisit this story of a serial killer who targeted young men and those in the LGBTQ community who were primarily Black and brown. And much of the discourse has focused on the way in which systemic racism actually allowed Dahmer to continue killing men after many people had reported these men were missing, again, missing from the Black community, Black and brown communities, to no avail. And some of those family members of Dahmer have actually spoken out against the series, saying that it has re-traumatized them, as all of us could imagine. And then spring forward to what's coming up on the horizon. I'm really excited about this movie about Emmett Till, entitled Till, which is going to be in theaters soon. And I've heard it rightfully amplifies the extraordinary strength of Emmett's mother, Mamie Till Mobley. And as a movie critic wrote of Mamie's role and portrayal in this movie, is that she's a woman sharing her pain and trauma with the world to put an end to the complacency in the face of racism. And for those of us that know the story well, I look forward to seeing it on the big screen. Just recently, when it was called a hate crime, many people that hadn't heard about it before started to learn the story of Emmett Till. And I'm definitely looking forward to this movie. If you haven't seen it or heard the story, please research it. Please go see the movie. But I think that's interesting that Emmett Till and so many others literally lost their lives because sometimes we as a society, we go out of our way to believe folks in certain identities or with certain status, and we completely discount others. And so the purpose of Unlocking the Club was actually to help amplify the voices and the stories of Black women in particular. Because I know what was true for me was that there were times where I felt that my voice wasn't heard, where my ideas weren't taken seriously. And those ideas, which were really good ideas, were only to have someone mention it later on and possibly get credit. And I think that we must believe in Black women, in Black and brown people, in our voices, in our perspective, in our stories. And so for the Black women in this audience, as you're listening to this show, continue to share your story, unlock your truth, reclaim your power. It's really important for us to use the platforms that we have to create visibility into our journey. And for the allies or the accomplices who are listening and listening deeply to our Unlocking the Club podcast. We're doing this because we need you and we are inviting you to believe the stories of Black women. Listen deeply to their stories and appreciate who they are and who they've had to be on this journey to the greatness that we've witnessed for so many of our guests that we've had the pleasure of interviewing in the past and certainly will in the future. Speaking of appreciating powerful Black women, I have a tremendous appreciation for how powerful today's guest actually shows up in whatever space she enters. Our special guest on today's episode of Unlocking the Club is Ramona Jackson, aka the Bourbon Bohemian.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Today on Unlocking the Club, I'll be joined by Ramona Jackson. Ramona is the Bourbon Bohemian, a curator of travel-inspired cocktail experiences for the cocktail curious and home bar enthusiast. A technologist by trade and mixologist by calling, Ramona is a student of inspired flavor fusions that bring people together and make the global spirits world accessible. Her craft cocktails are original recipes and labors of love inspired by all of the places she's been or would someday like to go. From artisanal simple syrup to matcha-infused gin, Ramona crafts adventures for her customers through her cocktail experiences, seasonal cocktail kits, and brand partnership offerings. Her tagline for the Bourbon Bohemian, come travel with me through cocktails. Thanks for tuning in as we unlock the club with Ramona Jackson. Ramona, welcome to Unlocking the Club. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Angela. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we heard about the Bourbon Bohemian, and I know that you were so much more than the Bourbon Bohemian. You had such a fascinating journey. Tell our audience a little bit more about who you are.
Definitely. Well, I am a complex amalgamation of identities. I'm a technologist. I've been in the tech space for about 15 years, most recently doing IT product management for Space Force. For the last few years, I am a mother. I have two teenage boys, 13 and 15 years old, wife, sister, daughter, avid hiker, camper. Most importantly, I'm an adventurer. Like I like to try new things and bring along people with me to try new things. And that kind of has taken me to places that I never really imagined I would ever go in this short time I've been on the earth.
I love that. I love that adventurer. And maybe a month or two ago, I read an article in a retirement magazine about a colleague who was the CEO for a global company based here in Boise, Idaho. And he had been on an adventure around the world on a motorcycle. And he actually talked about the difference between being an adventurer and an explorer. And I think you're an explorer. Talk about an adventurer or someone who goes to different places and comes back and tells you about what they did.
Okay.
And an explorer is someone who does the same thing, but they tell you what they learned.
Gotcha.
And my experience with you, Ramona, is that you have this amazing ability to distill all of your experiences and knowledge into a learning experience with others.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. If it's not simple and it can't be consumed by others, I don't really see the value in it, which makes me a good product manager. But yeah, I could definitely see myself being an explorer, like trying to find the meaning in a thing and not just doing things just to do them.
Yeah, well, I think, again, you as a technologist and a mixologist, like there's this interesting juxtaposition between the Bourbon Bohemian and you being a Black woman in the tech space. And who have you had to be under both of those umbrellas?
Yeah, definitely. I think as a technologist, I've had to be stronger than I need to be as a mixologist. There's like a softness about the R&D process of like creating a craft cocktail. And there's a hardness in having to like bring together people who might not want to be brought together to create a product in a space where things are being put together for war
Mm.
or potential times of war in the future. So working in the Department of Defense for the last 6 or 7 years, and working on like software development products that could potentially be used for war. The way in which I think about those problems that I have to solve is different. Everything's about like war fighters and missions. But as a mixologist, the way that I think about it is the adventure or the exploration of different cultures and cuisines and bringing people together in community to try new things where it might be strangers that don't know each other, but alcohol can be disarming and allow for us to be a little bit softer and a little bit more vulnerable with strangers. So it's like the juxtaposition there is like huge for me, but necessary. That balance, I feel like, keeps me grounded because I can leave my work in the day and then at night and on the weekends I can kind of pour myself into this creative pursuit that allows me to be soft and allows me to explore things that may or may not work without much consequence,
Mm.
um, and kind of engage with a very different set of people. My customers are very different for my mixology business than they are for the Department of Defense. The product that I create is very different. And then the value that's realized by those customers is very different as well.
Interesting. I'm curious as you're talking in this compartmentalization, right, that is taking place between the two domains that you are operating in. Is there an intentionality behind that? Because I think to a certain extent, as those in marginalized identities inside of corporate America, like I know I talk about it all the time, was the Hall of Fame compartmentalist, like right, and it was out of necessity. So was that born? Was your Bourbon Bohemian born out of the necessity to compartmentalize the hardness and the softness that you were needing?
I think so. It definitely kind of sprung up during the pandemic, which was a time when I think everyone was searching for balance. Um, and then I also think that it's something that's very subconscious. Like we're all looking for that balance in ways, maybe not intentionally, but I look at like cooking and how there's like salty and sweet things or like savory and like decadent things. And like the marriage of those things makes a meal. And sometimes that golden ratio of like how to put together a meal or how to put together a cocktail or how to put together a project plan or a product strategy, like there's like a natural order to things that kind of just crosses over different disciplines and domains. So I think it's bound to happen even sometimes if we don't do it intentionally. It's forced upon us, like we must do this thing in order to feel and experience balance, or the universe will do it for us.
Right. Well, how do you experience balance? Because you were at the top of your game in both of those spaces, trying to build a company, right, on your own, and right with the responsibility for the safety and security of hundreds of millions of Americans, like right to a certain extent in your hands. How do you maintain balance?
I am a proponent of rest as a revolution. So I take lots of breaks. Working remotely has afforded me the ability to sometimes just close my laptop and get up and walk away.
Yes.
I stay like less than 10 minutes from a hiking trail, or I can walk my neighborhood. I have a back porch I can sit on. Um, I can meditate. I can just maybe do some stretches in my office or living room. Like incorporating rest, like I incorporate meals into my day, is like tantamount, especially being a mother and working full time, trying to run a business, trying to maintain relationships and like social community. Rest is important, and that is another thing that I think will be forced upon us if we don't incorporate it on our own intentionally, which I've experienced recently as like, man, I slept for 16 hours. Why did that happen? I was not incorporating rest like I should have been in my day, my week, my month, my quarter. Um, so I think that is kind of like the glue that holds the balance together is rest.
Right.
Because you'll have all of this activity, like necessary activity, all of the responsibilities of our life, and then you have like just as necessary activity for like the creative pursuits or the callings or things that we're here for. But the thing that kind of like holds that all together, I think, is rest.
Yeah, that is true. Well, and I sense that you are someone who is constantly craving a new adventure exploration, like, right? And how do you manage that, which is probably part of your DNA, with the need for rest?
Partnerships. So my husband is my, my ace boon, my partner in crime, and he forces me to maybe like have a little bit of a meter on my experiments because I will experiment with all the things if I could. Um, Having people who are mirrors in your life, because a lot of times we talk about like empaths and self-awareness and situational awareness and all these like psychological buzz terms and phrases, but I think people really lack those things in real life and they just talk about them in fake life or social media.
Yeah, social media for sure.
Having partners, soulmates, friends, family members, even if it's just one person in your life that could be a mirror where you can actually see yourself and where you are, um, and what you're doing, I think helps a lot in tempering some of the things that might become obsessions. So as much as I desire to like be a bohemian in real life and like traipse across the world with all of my worldly possessions in a shoebox, I cannot do that. And my husband reminds me like it's time to rest more, or maybe we can't take a vacation every month, or maybe it's not a good idea for you to be out backpacking by yourself, Ramona, for 3 nights. So having those mirrors when we can't see ourselves by ourselves, I think is very important.
Can we probe a little bit more into that? Because I think that's really important. Again, for high achievers, action oriented individuals, like, again, you're constantly looking ahead. What's next? What this isn't not enough. How do you find that mirror to say, you know what, this is enough?
It's a labor of love to develop relationships with those individuals because I think they're always people. They can be strangers,
Mm.
but I think most oftentimes they are constants in your life. My sister, her and I talk every day, and she reminds me, "You accomplish so much, Ramona. You never write it down." So then you have those moments where you feel like you haven't done anything, and she reminds me of all the things that I've done that I did not document.
Mm.
Um, she is my scribe. She is my griot. Like she tells me all the stories of my life to remind me of like my power. Um, my husband, on the other hand, he's more forward thinking and reminding me of like how limitless my power is to say like just imagine yourself like moving away from technology and doing the Bourbon Bohemian full time, or like imagine like we've gotten the kids off to college and we've, eliminated the remainder of our debt and like we can do more exploring and more adventuring, like at all in all the different places on our bucket list. He is like my mirror facing one direction of like here's the future. I wouldn't say so much a mirror as like my crystal ball of sorts. And then my sister is like my mirror and I can see behind me. Like these are the things that you've accomplished, like how well you've raised your sons, like how far you've gone in your career, like how you started a business 2 years ago and like it's self-sustaining at this point. And having the two of them in my life has been invaluable.
I love that. I love that. And I want to get more into the Bourbon Bohemian because for those of you listening, you need to check it out. We'll have information about the Bourbon Bohemian on the website, in our show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, in the banners at the bottom of the screen, check out the website, thebourbonbohemian.com, and all of the adventures that Ramona will take you on through the cocktail world. So I want to talk about that. But before we get there, like, when did this burning desire to be great at whatever it was you do, when was that born? When do you first recall of wanting to be great at whatever it was, technology or an entrepreneur?
My first recollection, I would say probably elementary school. I was in like the gifted program and we had to dress up as a person that we admired. And most of the kids in class like had things that were like near and dear to like a juvenile at that age. And I dressed up as Michelangelo.
Oh my goodness. I can see that now.
And I like had this like obsession with like Da Vinci and like Greek and Roman mythology and like the study of like sciences and the human body. And like I was like old, but not old. I kept to myself. I read a lot of books, but I knew that I was different. I was different than everyone at school. I was different than everyone in my family, and not different like good or bad. It just, I felt out of place. Like I felt like I was supposed to be somewhere else. Not that I didn't appreciate and love where I was. It just was like this yearning that, like, I have it today. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I don't know where yet, but something's pulling me in some direction. I was an avid writer. I wrote poetry. I've published poetry. I'm working on another book of poetry right now, but like that, um, I think in elementary school is when I first felt it, and it's just grown now to sometimes it can feel overwhelming. Like I want to do so many things. I want to leave a mark. It doesn't have to be like some huge legendary thing, but there's like the mark that I'm supposed to leave. I feel like I haven't left it yet. And that feeling is growing since elementary school.
Yeah. So you're still painting your mosaic, right? And it is coming into full bloom before our eyes. But I think that what you just described, for many later on in life, you start to recognize where the club that you have sought to be a member in is not really the club where you will be happy.
Mhm.
How do you reconcile that at such a young age of like, I'm different, like, and
Yeah.
different, not in a bad way where I feel bad about that, but that I'm just not sure of where I fit in or how to build my own club.
Yeah. Being a writer, I created my own realities. So much of like my experience as a child was through books and writing. Now I like curate those experiences, like in traveling and being an outdoors woman and crafting cocktails from different countries. Um, and it can feel lonely to like always be creating experiences where it's just you. But I have started to figure out how to share those experiences through things like the Bourbon Bohemian, through things like publishing, like my writing, where as one time it was just like tons of notebooks all over the place with me just scribbling. And then finding my people, my tribe, like it's not big, but it's like perfect. Like the people in my life are all there for a very particular reason and all different reasons. And it's taken a long time to like build that. And I have people who've been there, you know, my whole life, like childhood on. I have people I met in college that, have now have been with me for almost 2 decades. I have people that I met in the last couple of weeks that I feel like they were brought into my life for a very specific reason. And I'm starting to like feel and recognize that sooner than I did when I was younger. Before it, things were kind of forced because you don't want to be alone. Now it's like, no, this isn't it. And I move on and I'm okay. Or something's there. I need to dig a little more. And I might find something that I wasn't expecting.
Interesting. So when you were younger, did you find yourself trying to fit into that club? Like, right? Like, and what did that feel like? When did you recognize, you know what?
Um, it felt exhausting because I wanted to be funny. I wanted to be athletic. I wanted to be cool. And I would throw myself into like all these different countercultures. So it was like, I play basketball, and that's what I did. Or I'm a writer, so I only hang out with like dark poets who do spoken word. Or I'm into like line dancing. Now I'm in college and I'm like with the line dancers on the like it was all these different things that I kept trying to throw myself in to find community and to but I would almost like be the chameleon and like I would do the things necessary to fit in the community that already existed instead of going inside and saying like, well, what's already there and then where is the community that like I fit into. So yeah, that was exhausting, like always changing to like try to fit in because I knew I didn't belong where I was. But now doing more self-exploration and just being attuned to like where I fit naturally.
Yes. There's an ease to it, right? And I think you mentioned belonging. I think so often belonging, we rely on the external cues to say that we belong somewhere. And the longing portion of that word, which is the exhausting piece, is what we emphasize versus the be, which is just being yourself, being at ease. And it's difficult, like on the journey. And I think still to this day, for me at this age and stage in my life, like I have to pause in a moment just to be like, this is easy and it's right. Like there's nothing wrong with there being some ease for where you fit in. A good friend of mine calls it her team of allies.
Yeah.
Like, right. And being able to find those folks is incredibly important. Well, would love to unpack the Bourbon Bohemian because it's not just a product or an experience company. It feels like there's an essence, there's a persona to it as well. So tell us a little bit more about the Bourbon Bohemian and how that came about.
Yeah, I was at home like so many of us during the pandemic, the very beginning of the pandemic actually. And I have always been a connector. So I can always like bring people together, connect information, connect dots. Like I've something about Legos and connecting things has been like something that I've always been very like naturally gifted at. And I missed connecting people. I'm home, it's me, my teenagers, my husband, and there's no more throwing parties at the house, no more luau's, game nights, and adult field days, and all these things that we had started to like curate over the first few years of our marriage.
Okay, wait, I want to be in your ecosystem and your team of allies. What? All of those things, game night? Okay.
Yeah. We had a Google Calendar called Jamona, Jason and Ramona,
Oh my God.
that we let our friends and friends of friends subscribe to. And every month we would curate a different event.
Oh
So
my
whirly ball, game night, bonfire, camping, luau's, onesie parties, cook-offs, like every month was an event.
Really?
And it got to be like a thing.
Wow.
But then the pandemic happened and like that thing was like immediately cut off. And I tried to do some virtual things and I'm just not really good at that. I crave like the energy of like being in the same space with other people. And I just could not get that from the virtual thing. So I took a piece of that experience of like crafting those experiences for others. And a piece of that was I used to batch cocktails for people because you got to feed them. You got to make them drinks, especially when you're dealing with adults. So, adult beverages and have something for them to engage with strangers. So like gamifying it so that if someone came alone, they wouldn't feel alone. So like cocktails was the piece that I could pull out of that and still do during the pandemic. So I started, my husband bought me a camera and I started like coming up with these like creative cocktails and photographing them and posting them online. Cause like, I'm here, I'll try to do this online thing, whatever. And people were like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till you post another cocktail. Like, I want to know what's in it. Like, what country is it from this time? And I was doing a lot of like just hanging out on my porch and just like drinking them after I made them and talking about it. A friend of mine came over one night and we had like a little porch set up And she was like, man, I really wish my birthday's coming up. I want to do something like kind of COVID safe in my backyard. Can you like come and do this for some handful of girlfriends and me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I guess. I don't know.
Like, that's the explorer in you. Like, okay, I figured it out though.
So yeah, I like put together a whole like cocktail 101 to like kind of show them my journey through like learning about how to craft cocktails, how to use global spirits and liqueurs, how to make my own syrups, bitters, things like that. We made 2 cocktails together, and then I sent them home with like a little cocktail goodie bag. It's very Susie Homemaker. And then another friend saw the pictures and was like, what? This is a thing? I think I want to do that too. And then I was booked for like 3 months.
Wow.
And this is 2020. So like the like Q4 end of the year. And then I was like, well, maybe I can like batch these things up and like send them to people if you want to do it virtual. So then I was doing holiday gifts.
Oh, wow.
And then I was doing corporate events, and it just, I don't even know. it grew on its own. Like I of course went back and like did all of like the necessary things. I'm like, oh, this sounds like a real thing. So like incorporating, getting my business license, getting licensed by the FDA, like going and taking a pH class at UGA so all of my products can be safe.
Oh, wow.
Like did the whole 9. Within like a 6-month period, like did all of that and just have been running ever since.
Wow. There is no in between, like, right? So I love that it just literally was born out of, okay, there's a gap, there's a hole in my necessity to be able to connect with others, right? And by the way, as soon as there is an application to be part of the Jamona Google right calendar, like I'm applying and I'm going to get on a flight to Atlanta if I'm ever invited, right, to one of those events. That sounds extraordinary. But it also like that connection, like, right, like out of your thing about connecting to others, this amazing venture was springboarded. And I love the fact that you're not just going to dip your toe in the water. You're going full force, right? You're getting your PhD in toxicology.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. And utilizing all of the things that I had already been doing as an IT product manager and like running product teams and like working in the consulting space. I already had like business acumen. I didn't want to make this feel like too much of a business, but I still wanted it to be legit. So there's a balance there too of like me saying no to things. Like I get a lot of requests for last minute events, or like things that are just too customized. And I'm like, no, but I can refer you to someone else as I've kind of like built out my network in the space. But it is a business. I know sometimes I use hobby as it's a misnomer. It's not a hobby anymore. But it's still a passion project. Like I never want it to feel like work can sometimes feel. I always want it to feel like it's its own person, its own thing that like has ease and softness to it. I never want it to feel like a career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there goes that juxtaposition between the hardness and the softness of this side hustle, which became a legitimate business that's continuing to grow, and it is your passion project. I appreciate you actually noting it is a passion project, and I think so often we conflate work with not having to be fun, or that it can't be fun or enjoyable, but being able to find your own club, to unlock your own club, to find out what's important to you, being able to connect with others. A lot of these amazing things can be born out of that. And I will say, and we'll have some information about how you all can explore the Bourbon Bohemian and all of the great things that Ramona is doing. But maybe about a month ago, Ramona put on an event for the Dignitas agency and some participants in one of our workshops at a reunion for one of our first signature events. And it was incredible. And it's not just some beautiful Instagrammable cocktails. The thought that you put into it. And I want to think that the cocktail you made for us was Curry Favor, which was in perfect alignment with what the objectives of that course, that 6-month mastermind course was for our participants. But Ramona was able to talk about the curry in a way that no one had ever thought about where curry came from, what it looked like, the meaning behind it. Like, tell me about how important that is to you, of not just being able to have people have a surface level quality experience, but again, that exploration of learning along the way.
Yeah. There's been so much in the news of late of people co-opting culture,
Yes, yes.
and I it really saddens me that people can't take a moment to just sit and listen or research or like connect with people that don't look like them, that don't come from where they are from, that don't think like them. So every cocktail I make, if I can't find a person from that country or like who is intimately associated with that cuisine, I do copious amounts of research. I want to know like the history. I want to know about the architecture. What is that going to have to do with like my cocktail? Lots. The places people dwell, the things that they eat and drink, the way in which they commune with one another says a lot about a culture, and you can imbue all those things into a cocktail that you create. So like this month was Turkey. I wanted to learn everything I could about Turkey and the Ottoman Empire, and not just what they ate and drank, but how they lived, what was the persona of the people from that region today and in the past. And then I create a cocktail. And I think that exploration and that learning about people, I'm not Turkish. I'm not Caribbean. I'm not Thai. I'm not, from a lot of these places that I make cocktails for, but I learned so much in the R&D process that I think gives me like a humility about like the undertaking of creating something from a place that I am not from. I never want to co-opt like someone else's culture just for like views or clicks or for sales. I actually want to experience something new and not make it a part of who I am, because I am an individual, but I want to pay homage to like that people, those persons, their culture, like where they're from, their history. Um, and I think this gives me an opportunity to do that over and over again every month.
How much of your commitment to doing that
Mhm.
is born out of the experience you had growing up, right? In Gifted and Talented, in being a voracious reader, of not feeling like you belonged in the club, but I imagine wanting people to understand and see you.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things that I do, it's not really the best thing for me to do, but I'm dealing with it,
Mm,
is I always do the thing that I want others to do.
yes.
So like I'm pouring myself into exploring someone else and their history and their culture, their cuisine, their story. I guess in hopes that someone will do the same for me, and in a way that's not commercial, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So it's like, don't ask about me in February.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
talk to me on Tuesday.
Mm.
Like, invite me over for dinner. Go for a walk in the woods with me. Like that is tantamount to what I do every day. That is what I did when I tried to become Michelangelo and wanted to learn everything about Da Vinci in elementary school. I was like building a relationship with this person that was no longer alive, of course, but it was still a relationship because I was getting to know them and their thought process and what made them tick and what they researched and what they put out into the world. And we all want people to do that with us.
Yes.
And I think we don't always receive that, and we have to be okay with that. But that shouldn't stop us from doing it because it's so enriching. Like the things that I've learned about myself in the process of like creating, the people that I've met. One of my first cocktails was like a Lebanese, like Persian inspired one. And the people of like Persian descent who reached out to me online to say, wow, the flavors that you put together, the fact that you knew what Avia Barinj was, the fact that you took the time to put together that cocktail in that way, wow. Like I feel like in that moment, they felt seen in the same way that I and everyone else always wants to feel seen.
And what does that give you?
Um, Pride that like I I'm doing something that I feel like we all should do.
Yes.
Hope that one day someone might take the time to try to see me or see someone that I love who needs to be seen in that moment. And a little bit giddy, like it's exciting. Like I get to see things all the time. I get to see people all the time, like in in their element, like talk to people about how their grandmother cooked for them or like their memories from their childhood and like that influence my cocktails.
Yeah. So many things that I want to unpack here that you shared, but one when you talked about your connection to Michelangelo,
Mhm,
right? And how, in essence, that is living in you today and what you were curating on your own. I
mhm,
watched a documentary from Ken Burns and talked about
mhm,
all how he tells stories
mhm.
and how most of his stories are about things like right bridges or towns and people like how can you tell a story about something that can't talk to you that you can't interview and it was if you ever get a chance to watch some of his work and the impetus behind his work, it's really fascinating. And he talks about it's kind of his journey. Like he got to know his mother who
Mhm.
had passed, I believe, and the necessity to find her story after she had passed, and that's why he wants to tell these stories of things and people because we connect to those stories and there's a lot of information that's there. So I appreciate like right your connection to Michelangelo
Mhm.
and how it is living through everything that you're doing. But I also get curious and want to unpack this kind of concept that I'm discovering in the conversations with guests on Unlocking the Club is outside looking in. Right, we look at Ramona working for SpaceX, like right, doing some great things with products, product development. Have your own, company, the Bourbon Bohemian. Beautiful
Mhm.
family, great relationships. As you talked about with your husband and your sister. Again, the Jamona events series, like all of these things. And from the outside looking in, you're like, she's fine, like right. And internally, there's these things that we crave, that we need to be seen. Right? And you think
Yep.
about Maslow's hierarchy, like right, but to be seen is one of those things that we need. Can you bridge the gap between that, like of reconciling? Everyone thinks you're in the club already,
Yeah.
but there's still this desire.
Yeah. One thing that I inherited from my mother is a proclivity for wanting people to see what I want them to see.
Okay, tell us more there. There's a lot. That's loaded.
I have this bang over one eye, and you see this eye here, and it's like, this is what I want you to see. Or I have like, the pictures in the foyer and the globe, the world on like the driftwood on the other side. And that's what I want people to see when they walk into my home. But there are junk drawers in my home. I never want people to open them. So I'm ashamed of those places. They are full of things that I can't label, that I can't organize, that I can't explain, but that I can't get rid of. And to be seen fully, you have to allow people into your junk drawers. And I really struggle with that. You have to, of course, trust that those people will not take advantage of the information that they come across in those junk drawers um, now or in the future. And you have to also be okay with having a junk drawer and not ignore the fact that you have a junk drawer. But it's hard because everything's about optics these days. It's like everyone's a content creator or an influencer, and we're all painting these portraits. And then the canvas behind it is like smeared with like stuff, but we painted over it. So it doesn't matter. Everyone just sees the painting. Um, but I think my business and my life in general will be so much more full when I embrace the bloopers.
Hmm.
Like show people like the nasty cocktails that I've made. The ones that were not pretty, that did not work. The ideas that, man, I really thought I could put that in a cocktail. I was wrong. Um, those things, I think, if we can all be more comfortable with like letting our people, our mirrors, our trusted confidants into our junk drawers and give them access to our bloopers, then I think we'll really feel seen. Until then, I think we're only seen in part. Like we only show what we want people to see, and we won't ever feel like we're completely seen because we're not.
Yes. And I think about, thank you for that amazing kind of metaphor for what's showing up. And I think it shows up for Black women in particular. And is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this show, because what I discovered again in the last 7 years of interacting with my mother, there was so much about her life and her journey that was extraordinary that she didn't share with me, and vice versa. There were so many things that had happened in my life that I didn't share with her, possibly because I didn't want to disappoint her with the failures, right? Or the different things that didn't turn out the way I wanted to. Like, I don't know why, I can't pinpoint it, but I do know that for me and a lot of people that look like me, we are Hall of Famers at that, of that junk drawer, those bloopers that we won't give anybody access to. And when we think about Brene Brown and Daring Greatly, it's the vulnerability that allows us to connect. Those connections that you seek happen when you can build trust. And trust doesn't just happen in the Instagrammable photos. It happens in the failures and the places that we're human. What is the key to being able to open up that junk drawer and for us to actually look in? Sometimes I think we're ignoring it as well. We throw it in there and close it as quick as possible because we don't want to know what's in that junk drawer.
Yeah. I was just talking with a friend yesterday. We went out for coffee and I told her it's so apropos that this week, like it's in the 30s in Atlanta.
Oh,
So I was like, you know what? I think everyone should go inside.
mm,
I was like, and not inside like in their homes because it's cold outside, but like inside themselves.
yes.
Like go inside your drawer, and you don't have to organize it or like make it presentable, but just open it. Open it, look inside, observe it, thank it for its service because
Has a
it
purpose.
has yeah, it has purpose. Like it's made us who we are today, all the things in that drawer. But you have to go inside first. And then I think there's a discernment that I think people need to exercise with how they approach like being vulnerable. Social media has like made people think that like just spouting it out on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook is you being vulnerable. Not really. That is like one of the safest places theoretically for you to like just send it out. Those people are strangers. And if you get into, a tussle online digitally with someone because of your thoughts or like your vulnerable moments, like, tomorrow's a new day. Being discerning about the actual like people in your life, the people that you bring into your life, the people that have been in your life for quite some time, the new people or the opportunities for people to bring people into your circle, and knowing who to share with and be vulnerable with, being vulnerable with yourself after you've opened the drawer, and just being discriminating. I think there's all these things I feel like we are missing culturally that I wish we could like go back to the time of like the Harlem Renaissance when people would like go to salons and talk, amongst intellectuals or just have like more close-knit communities. But there was like a wisdom and a discernment and a discrimination that I think is just missing right now. But so I think those are the two things. One, open the drawer. Don't be afraid of what's inside. Learn from the things in there. And two, when you're ready to share what's in the drawer, be careful
Mm.
like who you share it with, how you share it, when you share it. Um, yeah, I just
No, that's
those things we used to learn from like our elders, but like not anymore.
I agree. The proximity that we used to have, right? We're families, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents. You all lived on the same block. You were able to have that access and have that shared journey that you were able to learn from for sure. And I agree. Being able to find in the new world that we're living in, be able to find that old world perspective is really incredibly important. And I love what you say about like open the drawer, right? And be careful. And when we think about opening the drawer, the irony, Ramona, is that all those things in the drawer, they're the things that have stuck to us like Velcro, right? And all the things that we put on Instagram and the glorified items, like, right? We retract them, like, right? And it's that just I just can't understand. Like we hang on to those things that don't go well, where we fail, where we don't accomplish what we want to accomplish, and we hold them against ourselves, and we don't take a moment to celebrate the achievements, however grand or small that they are.
Yeah, celebration I think is has been missing for a while, like true celebration.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh my gosh, where's my phone? I have to take a video of this. And then the moment is gone.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, oh, we're doing a gender reveal. Let's explode a plane. And is it pink or blue? Like, instead of celebrating this life that's coming into the world just amongst a trusted few.
Yeah.
Or celebrating, you know, someone getting up and going outside after having sequestered themselves inside because they are in the depths of despair and going through a moment of depression. Um, yeah, I think we all could like we're overdue for like some genuine celebrations, not ones that are Instagrammable.
Exactly. Right. And inside of that, rest is a revolution, like a being in wellness, right? I think that the last 2, 3 years that we've been going through has been excruciating for many of us for different reasons, right? And some magnified. And I think it's really important for us all to tune into our mental health,
Mm-hmm.
to
Absolutely.
be good and give ourselves grace in that process. Are there times where you didn't give yourself grace?
All the time.
Mm.
All the time. I think because I'm always feeling like there's this longing for me to be in another place or like at another stage in my life. I beat myself up because I'm like, well, what am I not doing? What am I missing? Like I'm supposed to have the answers. And I think that comes from work because I feel like I'm always supposed to have a solution to a problem. Because I'm a product manager. It's like I build solutions to problems.
Mm.
But I feel like my children are teaching me grace more than anything else because they see me as I can't see myself. Even when I'm like, oh, I'm such a bad mom. Like I just didn't feel like it today. And they're just like, wow, you bought me all this stuff for my VR Oculus. I want to live in the Sims world. And they give me grace that I can't give myself, which is huge. And I think like back to relationships, like your community, the people that you have around you, like those mirrors to not only show you what you can't see, but also provide for you and give you the things that you can't give yourself in some of those moments where you're beating yourself up. So I do it all the time. I do not give myself grace when I should. I'm taking more naps and hoping that once my body like catches up on like 20 years of lost rest, that
Yeah.
I will be in like a better place tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that to give myself more and more grace until I reach that ripe age where I don't really care.
Exactly.
Where we're all trying to get.
Where we are all on that journey for sure. And I agree with you. I think that it's a practice and a habit. And oftentimes we don't have anybody around us that's modeling that. And so what you're doing for your kids, right? And what your kids are doing for you is helping you model that so that it is okay to give yourself grace. And I think just as a society in the workplace sometimes can be incredibly difficult because we don't give others grace and encourage failure. Failure is actually a blessing if we take it that way and we give ourselves that opportunity and others as well.
Yeah, definitely. Without it, we all are living in mediocrity.
Absolutely.
That status quo, if we're not encouraging people to actually do things. Like I know we talked about being, which I think is more of like a internal, like non-work related thing,
Yeah.
but like there's a doing, and not just talking about things, but actually like executing and implementing that I think is, I don't know where it is. Hopefully it comes back,
Hopefully.
but
Yeah, yeah. I think people are so mentally exhausted. We're hearing now, what is it, quiet quitting, right? And I think for a long time, the normal thing that was expected was you to do more, to go above and beyond, versus
yeah,
just the thing. And again, for those of us in historically excluded or marginalized identities, oftentimes it was the normalcy was doing twice as much
hmm
and working twice as hard. And now
yes,
being okay with like, if I'm doing that, then you're going to compensate me for that, right? Otherwise, I'm just going to do what I'm asked to do.
yeah. I think it's an issue of people not knowing what's valuable and like what is valuable and what's not valuable.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I try to teach my teams and especially my directs. Now we're going through a review cycle right now, and they're coming to me with all these goals that they want to do for the next couple of months. And I'm like, what's reasonable
Yeah.
for you to actually do given the historical data that we have from the past 12 months?
Yeah.
What's valuable for you to do given what you've told me you want to accomplish and what I'd like for you to accomplish?
Yeah.
And then what's desirable? Like, what are you actually going to have the motivation and the energy, given the state of the world and all other things, to actually do? And if the things that you presented don't pass those 3 litmus tests, then let's delete it. And many of them, came down to like 2 goals.
Mm,
That sounds like where we should have started, but I'm glad we got there.
right.
But yeah, that like the value of a thing, it's important in like helping you to make like decisions. Like, do I want to do a lot of things or just do a valuable thing? And once I do that valuable thing, I'm gonna feel good. The people that I'm serving are gonna feel good, and more than likely, I would have done the thing I was supposed to do anyways.
Yeah. That was a gift. That was a gift because I would imagine for your team, you all, Ramona shows up very powerfully when she enters a room. So again, had the pleasure to for 6 months, right, inside of a workshops to be in a space with Ramona, and you always showed up. And as you said about being a product developer, basically, right, being able to distill these complex concepts into simple ones, explain them, but also you were able to see and hear everybody and connect the dots, those Legos that you spoke of. And I think that what you just did for your direct reports was exactly that, connecting the dots and asking like what's doable and valuable and desirable. I think that's a really important piece. And then I'll ask that for you, like as you look forward and ahead to someone who is trying to paint like your own Michelangelo, like, right? What's doable, valuable, and desirable for you?
Mm, I think I'm in my freedom season.
Okay.
I think the doable thing for me is to stay consistent on my wealth journey. I've been like on a fire journey the last few years. So trying to like pay off all of my debt and like build up my investment portfolio so that I can retire early.
Yes.
Financial independence, retire early. That's what fire means. So that's the doable thing for me, is like continuing on in what I've been doing and staying the course during a very turbulent economic time.
Mm.
I think the valuable thing for me to do right now is to be comfortable in solitude. Having like been the person who threw all the parties and did all the things, sitting in silence and not doing anything is very difficult for me.
Mhm.
Um, so I think I'm becoming comfortable in like that solitude, like going on walks alone, sitting on my porch alone, being with my thoughts, but not like drowning in them. Um, I think that is the valuable thing for me right now. And I think the desirable thing for me is to really go deep with my family here in my home. I travel a lot for work, travel a lot for pleasure, gone a lot doing things because I'm an active individual.
Yeah.
And I want to decorate for the holidays and have more. We had like a family movie night the other night. We have been trying to cook together and just do more things together. Just this, our little family unit here, me, my husband, my kids, because I think that is desirable for me to like build that up as strong as I can possibly build it so that my children will always have a refuge to return to. They're 13 and 15. They'll be going off to college in a couple of years, going on their own adventures, exploring the world. I always want them to feel like they have a center of gravity that they can come back to. Traditions and memories and rituals and things that they say, oh, remember mom used to take us camping, or my mom always tried to put up a tree for Christmas. So like when I start my family, I'm going to put up a tree for Christmas. Or this is my favorite meal that my mom made me, and I want to be able to make this meal with my kids. So I think that is like the desirable thing for me to like create that because I'm a creator and have it like stand the test of time. My children always have something to come back to.
Legacy. That's legacy work. Wow. Well, we're here on Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. We're talking to Ramona Jackson about what's doable, what's desirable, and what's valuable. And we'll be back with more of this conversation on the back nine here in a moment. Do you want to stop feeling like you have little to no control over your life's journey and instead amplify your life's purpose? You all know me as Angela Taylor, host of the Unlocking the Club podcast, but I am also a business, career, life, and leadership coach, helping my clients to live their best life. Every day, I help my clients discover what they truly want in life, and then unlock the club on how they can live their best life. If you're like many of my clients, you have found yourself over the years prioritizing everyone else and everything else. Your job, your significant other, your family, your friends, your community, the list goes on and on. Well, I'm here to tell you the best thing you can do for others is to invest in yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to succumb to the fear of failure. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to feel like you're being selfish. You simply need to prioritize you. You may be thinking that coaching is for other people, but trust me when I say that we all could benefit from a good coaching relationship. Together, we'll build a plan to help you amplify your gifts, clarify your goals, and accelerate your journey toward the life you desire, which may be finding financial wealth, spiritual health, relationship success, and/or freedom and flexibility. You no longer have to feel like you aren't welcome into someone else's club. Let me empower you to leverage all of your extraordinary gifts and create your own club. Head on over to unlockingtheclub.com to book a free 20-minute introductory call to learn more about our Unlocking Your Journey coaching packages, or use code UNLOCK to get a 15% discount on the 6-month coaching package. Today is the day to invest in yourself. Let's unlock your journey. Welcome back to Unlocking the Club. We're here on the back nine with Ramona Jackson. And Ramona, I just have a few questions to find out a little bit more about you. And you just talked about what you love doing, inviting people into your home and connecting folks, and you want your kids to have these memories that they'll pass on to their kids with the things that you're creating. I'm curious, that beside your own home, what's a place that you feel safe to be yourself?
Ooh, a place. I want to do 2 places because they are like equal. My car. I often pull into my garage and do not leave my car for like a while. Sitting there, it's almost like sitting in my mind. It helps me like decompress and like prepare for like whatever's coming when I walk into my home. And then the other place is the forest, like hiking and being in nature and surrounded by green. And I went hiking the other morning and ran into like 6 deer. Like that place is magical to me. So like those are my two like favorite places.
Oh my gosh. Like you just brought that home for me because I love being in the car and just driving. Like, right. So if I'm driving to where I grew up in Mountain Home, which is 45 minutes away, there's so many ideas, just kind of being in the car by myself that come to me. And then hiking for sure, that fresh air and
Mhm.
just, not having your phone on and hopefully the reception not being great. It just allows you to center yourself. Very powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. If there is any, what's a situation that you walk into with trepidation every time?
Mm. New jobs.
Mm,
I usually try to move about a bit. I spent quite a bit of time as a contract worker.
okay.
So like every 2 years or so, I want to experience something new, a new industry, a new domain, a new set of coworkers, new clients, et cetera, et cetera. And consulting really affords me that. Coming into a new job, there's like all this expectation I put on myself because it in no way is put on me by my employer.
Right.
But I always I want to be able to build rapport quickly. I want to be able to be impactful quickly. I want to be able to leave a mark. I want my customers and my coworkers 10, 15 years ago, from now to be like, hey, I'm just hitting you up. I thought about you. Like, I remember when we did this, or do you remember we worked on that together? Or like, that is like a thing for me. Like, I never want to like go into a job or leave a job and not have been able to do that. So when I get there, I'm like, how do I do this? So yeah, scariest part of my life.
Yeah, yeah. When I wonder, like this nomadic kind of consulting lifestyle, if that also fuels your fire because it allows you to overcome like this fear that you have, and you feel like you're someone that has those things, those goals set for yourself, just to challenge yourself in unique ways.
Yeah, because it definitely can be the case that if you're at a place for 5, 10, 15 years, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it can make you complacent.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a little bit of I'm intentional about moving every 2 years, and because it's a forcing function for me to learn something different, to meet new people, to be able to achieve something new
Mm.
that I probably wouldn't get if I stayed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you've talked a little bit about like the bangs pulled over your eye and right, the junk in the junk drawer and the things that you do want to hide. What's something about yourself that you actually refuse to hide?
Ooh, I refuse to hide. Oh, my height and my hair.
Okay.
I'm 5'11". I love a good 6-inch heel,
Nice.
and I will not apologize for it.
Yeah, unapologetic.
Like I love being the tallest person in the room. I love having big hair. Um, I love changing the color of it. I'm thinking about going purple next.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, my height and my hair, they're my calling card.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it. Well, and you've talked a lot about this, and I think you have a lot of clarity around it. But what's your superpower?
Connection. Connection is my superpower. Not necessarily for myself though, which is a weird thing. It's like my service is to connect others,
Okay.
to connect ideas, to connect things, to connect people to resources. I have a friend, she calls me the human Rolodex. Anyone can come to me and say, "Oh, I'm looking for it." I'm like, "Oh, got it. Call Ed." Or, I've been struggling with this. Oh, got it. Call Kristen. Like the compartments,
Yeah.
the compartmentalization helped me to be able to do that. So yeah, that is definitely my superpower.
And what does that give you?
Um, I think it gives me a sense of achievement and accomplishment to be able to like do that quickly and on the fly, to be in a meeting or to be with with a friend, or to even be by myself and like be able to like very quickly connect the dots or connect people or ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And then another bit of hope that like I can one day use this service on myself to like connect to myself better to the things that I need and the things that I desire. Not all of our gifts are supposed to be used for ourselves, supposed to be used for others, but who knows?
Yeah. But if we don't use them for ourselves, like, right, we're doing ourselves a disservice many times.
So true.
And I think that so often people prioritize everybody else and everybody else's experience or journey, and we don't prioritize our own. So use your superpower, leverage it in all the ways that you can. When you're at your best, Ramona, like, however you define being at your best, what's true for you?
I'm okay.
Mm.
I think when I'm at my best, I'm not worried about the future so much. Like I'm present. I'm proud of myself and what I've accomplished and where I am. I'm safe and comfortable, like with my surroundings and the people in my space. I'm okay.
Mm.
I think so often like we don't feel safe or we don't feel okay. Um, One of my like fondest memories of my nephew is he was here from Jacksonville, which is where I'm from, for like a festival with my sister. And I was holding him at the festival because he was a little tired. And I was like, "What's wrong, Papa?" And he was like, "I'm not okay."
Oh.
And that like he's always had words for things, but him saying that at like that age, he was like, maybe 4. He's like, "I'm not okay." It's like I felt that. It's like, yeah, like I've been there. Like sometimes I'm not okay, but when I am okay, I know that I'm like in the right space, in the right time, in the right moment.
Yes. I love that you acknowledge that for him and saying that, because I think so often I was just talking to a colleague who was talking about their child who is autistic.
Mhm.
And I was asking him if he wanted to go trick or treating this year. And he said no, like unequivocally, right? And that she respected and honored that, like, right? And I'm like, I love that. The fact that it's super clear. I think all of us in our lives are trying to figure out how we can say no. Be much better at saying no to the right things and yes to the right things. And so, like, making sure that we encourage people to be that clear. And so then when he said, "I'm not okay," and for boys, for young boys to be able to say that, that's remarkable. I love that. When you think about the world that we live in and all of the spaces that you navigate, Ramona, what's the
Mhm.
story that needs to be told?
I think the biggest story that needs to be told is like we're more alike than we are different. Um, we create all of these artificial boundaries to make ourselves feel quote unquote safe.
Yeah.
Um, I'm natural. I'm not natural. I'm black. I'm white. I'm a career professional. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm this. I'm that. Like we do the forced compartmentalization as a safety mechanism, and we really all at our core, according to Maslow and so many other peer-reviewed scientists, like we all want the same things. We all need the same things. We're all people, no matter how old or young we are. Like you were just saying, like kids are people too. They need and want the same things that, an adult or an elder, an ancestor needed and wanted during their time. And I think if we remind ourselves that we're more alike than we are different and tell those stories, um, show those videos of like people coming together, unlikely people coming together and like finding similarities, I think it will dispel a lot of like the forced compartmentalization that we do to feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can take away the weaponization of fear, right? If we're able to get to know people truly who they are, the humanity, right, amongst us, such a powerful thought. What's a club that you claim as your own?
A club that I claim as my own. I would say the nature club.
Mm.
I feel like the people that I meet out in nature, the people who hike and camp and like appreciate birds chirping and silence and stillness or running to a deer on the trail, like that club I claim as my own. I was very active at one point in like a lot of like hiking groups, did a lot more camping with family and friends. And in the last week or so, I'm like, man, I really got to get back to that because it's one of the times in my life I was most at peace.
Mm.
So that's a club I would go to, stay up all night in that I feel like those are my sort of people, my sort of spaces.
Yeah, just consume it. I have some good friends that we go hiking with on a regular basis, and being able to go on these hikes through their prism has changed me in that same way. We'll go on a hike and you'll see a group of deer together, right, and just be in wonder for 10 minutes just watching, or the wildflowers and the beautiful colors that you see. And we, for our book club, we read The Overstory, a book about trees that I never would have purchased. I would never gone to Amazon to get that book. It was fascinating. And when we had another member of the book club talk just recently about how now when she sees trees, she thinks about the history and the life of these trees and how they're connected. And so I agree, nature is such a powerful thing for us. And right now in the space that we're in, I think for COVID has given me nature, right? I started a garden, I sit outside more often, go on more hikes. And I completely agree with you and want to be in that club as well. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Ramona, you have so many things going on. We're excited. Like, we're going to have some stuff to reveal and hopefully collaborating with the Bourbon Bohemian here in the near future. If you're listening to the show, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see at the bottom of the screen where you can go to thebourbonbohemian.com and subscribe to one of her monthly subscriptions. You don't want to miss out on her taking you on a passport around the world. And if you use the promo code UNLOCK5, you'll get a 5% discount on that subscription package. Encourage you to do it. You will not regret it. Again, it'll take you around the world through Ramona's lens, which is a really detailed lens. But Ramona, where can people find you and what else do you have going on? Any other special projects?
Definitely. So I just started maybe 6 months or so ago, a passport program for those in the Atlanta area, where I'm going around to different locations and doing a full like passport experience. So our first one, we went to Thailand. I partnered with a local chef, and she's amazing. Her name is Chef Anifa from Atlanta Sweet and Savory. Look her up as well. And she has been curating the cuisines, and I have been curating the cocktails for these passport experiences. So we give out like physical passports that you get stamped at every event. We've done Thailand, we've done Argentina, and next month on November 19th at Condesa Coffee, we'll be doing Ghana. So really excited about that one. So that's one big thing. Every holiday season, I do a hot toddy cocktail kit. So there's 2 different toddies that you can have hot or cold. So like last season, I think I did like an Earl Grey and apple one that was inspired by like the Ella J apple farms just north of here, north of Atlanta. And I think I did one that had like some spice influence. This time I'm trying pear ciders because I'm into pears and like French wine, poached pears. So I'm working on doing a Middle Eastern inspired pear cider toddy, and then most likely a South African inspired one. So those will go into that holiday kit. A lot of people buy those as gifts. I had one person that bought like 15 of them last year, and that was the only thing she gave out for Christmas, which was cool. It's like an experience for someone to like learn about like cuisine from different countries and also experience something warm and like a little hug. So I have that coming up. Those will be released on November 1st. And then I think the next thing that I'm going to be working on is focusing more on corporate events and experiences. So I've done a lot of stuff recently for like Red Bull and VMware, some sororities, some fraternities, et cetera. And I want to make happy hours and team building events fun. Sometimes companies, they bring people together, but without a purpose. So I want to delve more into that. So I'll be doing a lot more marketing around offering mocktail experiences for corporations ways to still teach individuals about different cuisines and cultures, and give them the opportunity to like be interactive in making their own mocktails and doing it with their coworkers in a way that's fun and not boring.
Yes, love it. Love it. I know we all could use a fun kind of social activity in the workplace for sure. So um,
Yeah.
definitely head on over to the bourbonbohemian.com to find out more about all of the things that Ramona has in store in the future. Again, use the promo code UNLOCK5 to sign up for some of the different packages and the things that are offered. And keep your fingers crossed, like perhaps we might be conjuring up a little mixture and tincture of our own to come up with an Unlocking the Club concept. And you will be the first to hear about it. So stay tuned. You can also find Ramona on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at the Bourbon Bohemian, and on Twitter at Bourbon Boheme. So you'll have that information in our show notes at the bottom of the screen on YouTube. Ramona, it has been such a wonderful time having a conversation with you today. I love everything that you're doing. I appreciate the journey that you're on and your honesty and candor in today's conversation.
Thank you. This is a space I feel like we need more of. So I will definitely be tuning in every Wednesday for the drops and just kind of soaking up what you're putting out here. I think it's necessary.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We might tap into that Ramona Jackson Rolodex and let them know about Unlocking the Club and everything that we're doing here. But thanks again for joining us today here on Unlocking the Club. Wow, another fantastic episode here on Unlocking the Club. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation that I just had with Ramona Jackson. There are so many nuggets that Ramona shared that resonated with me. The first one was a really powerful one and a reminder that I'm actually probably going to have to set a little daily reminder or alarm and say rest is a revolution. Is make sure you're getting the rest that you need. If you find that you are sleeping in on Saturdays and sleeping 12, 16 hours a day, you need to make sure that you're getting your sleep. It's one of those things that, from elite athletes like LeBron James to some of the wealthiest individuals that you hear, they talk about prioritizing their health and getting the rest and the sleep that they need. So that's definitely a message that resonated with me. I am going to take some time to open the drawer and to look into what's in that junk drawer that I have, and also to be careful with what I share with others as I try to be vulnerable. So many great nuggets. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and that you, as well as Ramona, will get comfortable in solitude. I think there's so many opportunities for us to pause and get to know ourselves by just spending time with ourselves, whether that's on a hike, whether that's during your quiet car rides or on walks. Get comfortable in solitude. So that was it for another episode of Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to continue the discussion, head on over to our Facebook page, the Codebreakers Lounge. Join the group. We continue these conversations. We dig in. We have live events with our guests and some Ask Me Anything sessions, so you get a chance to ask your favorite guests some questions and get to know them as well. And we hope that for those of you that want to be able to be seen and heard, that is what we do over there at the Codebreakers Lounge. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you follow us on our social handles at Unlocking the Club or at Unlocking the Club Podcast. Tune in to see what is next. And until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform, so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.